Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, my guest is James LaValle, who is a clinical pharmacist, board-certified clinical nutritionist, and who works with the NFL, NBA, MLB, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame Village to offer personalized health, wellness, diet, and performance strategies. And he says, don't just take probiotics because they are popular, and that is going to be our topic for today. Dr. LaValle has been our guest here many times because he is a prolific author, and we have covered many of his books, such as Your Blood Never Lies, and other great information that James LaValle offers. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Good to be here. Good morning.
Now, it's an interesting topic because, probiotics are all the buzz. I mean, they're actually been heavily introduced even through mainstream pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I think that there's a tremendous amount of value in probiotics, don't get me wrong. I think that we also have this situation where a lot of times marketing will trump science, and so you have people that are, or companies that are putting in 20 or 30 different strains of probiotics into a bottle. They don't measure the compatibility of them. They don't have any data on any of the probiotics. So I think, while I've used probiotics 35 years in practice, and I totally believe that they have value. I think that we have to have sensibility to them, just like any other supplement or any other botanical or any drug therapy that gets recommended. That's okay. What am I taking it for? Is there some evidence? And how do I know if I'm getting a probiotic that I can trust? I think that's a biggie because people don't realize that they're living organisms, and it's different than manufacturing vitamin B6.
And what way would that be different?
Well, because they're living organisms, they have to survive the process of being in a capsule on a shelf. So there's an issue with sustainability or colony forming units as to, is a product guaranteed to the date of expiration, or is it guaranteed at the date of manufacturing? And for a lot of probiotics, they're guaranteed at the date of manufacturing, and that doesn't mean that you're getting that when you buy it off the shelf. And there's other issues because organisms are live, is that, for example, everybody uses refrigerated probiotics. Well, it turns out that when you have a refrigerated probiotic and you take it out of the refrigerator and you open it up, the change in humidity and temperature actually can impact the beneficial flora in the bottle. So in a negative way, meaning that it stresses the flora. A lot of people don't realize that you can get heat-stable probiotics that are room temperature stable and have guaranteed life shelf, which is really what you're looking for. So, when you make B6, it's vitamin B6. It's not a living organism. It's a vitamin. And sure, you still need to have quality control. And, did somebody finish the manufacturing process correctly? All those things have to be intact. But it gets a little trickier when you're giving living organisms.
That is so true. And I want to go back in time a little bit, James LaValle, because you are a highly trained conventional pharmacist in terms of your background. But what made you move so heavily into being a nutritional pharmacist, which you are certainly well known to be?
That's a good question, Ellen. I think it was one personal interest. So as an athlete, worked out in high school and, got into kind of bodybuilding in college and kind of got the meathead diet on a one-page piece of paper, what I called the meathead diet, which is, eating chicken and rice 4 times a day kind of thing. And So I had kind of an active interest, but the real problem for me, I got sick. I got really sick, went to a doctor of chiropractic who actually was also, a lab chemist, and, he worked my chemistry up, put me on a program that included using nutritional. This is back in 1984. So, pretty early on. And I felt so different from, where I was to, deploying some of the tactics that he asked me to do. Like, he, put me on a gluten-free diet back in 1984. He changed my diet up, a lot more plant food, gave me botanicals, so I had different tinctures that I took. And it was night and day difference. And I thought, man, I gotta figure this out, because more people have to find out about this, that natural therapies have value in how you're going to live the quality of your life. It's, not just about whether, you manage your cholesterol correctly. It's how well do you feel in that process. And that's what kind of lit the fire in me. And then it went, I kind of went a little nutty with, writing 4 databases and 20 books and 16 ebooks and lecturing all over the world. But I'm passionate about it. I can't help it. I think it's really important that people understand that they have a right to feel their best, and that natural therapies, I believe, play a central role, and along with lifestyle, obviously, and those type of things, is the how people can actually maintain their maximum value in their life. So that's kind of it.
Well, thank you. And I want people to know that there's a great website where someone can take a questionnaire and see which of the vast array of probiotics might be best for them. And that's called www.probiotics.com. And I guess that's something that you're involved with, which helps people get through this myriad of complicated questions in terms of, are probiotics the right thing for you? And if so, which kind?
Yeah, probiotics.com, I'm a topic expert for them, and so I answer questions. And it's great because there's a lot of current research that's up on probiotics there, and I think a lot of people get confused about, how many CFUs should I take? Isn't more always better? And it's understanding that you've got to find strains. One of my favorite probiotic companies is Wakanaga, who makes a product called Chiodophilus. And the reason I just respect their company so much is that, they test for stability. They test for viability. Their products are guaranteed to expiration date, and they're room temperature stable. So I know for me, I travel a lot. I'm on planes. I need something that's room temperature stable. I take probiotics. Had one of the big journeys for me, getting into this space was cleaning up my gut. My gut health was really off, and so I like to take a probiotic, but I take more of a maintenance of it nowadays versus, I need a lot because I'm having rashes and I'm having eczema and I'm bloated, and you may need a little more when you're starting out, but then you also need more of just maintenance as you move forward with your gut health. And that's why, I think probiotics.com is a great place for information. And, people are out there looking for a product that they can get to from, the typical health food store that they know is heat stable and guaranteed date of expiration. And, Chiodophilus is a really good brand. And there's others. There's other companies out there doing good work in this probiotic space. It's the companies that are throwing 30, 40, 50, billions of units of probiotics in their product and just saying, because it's more, it's better.
Yes, I also don't think that's the way to go. In fact, with me, it's always a matter of, closer to nature, if we can do that, is really great. What are your feelings about incorporating, you know what? hold on a second, because I just have to make this little announcement because we're up to that. And that is, I want to welcome all of you to Herbally Yours. And I'd like you to know that we are the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, your host, the natural nurse. And today, my guest is James LaValle, who is, I don't know if we'll call him a master pharmacist. I would say he's one of the top pharmacists in the industry. He is a registered pharmacist as well as a clinical nutritionist, and we are listening to him today to talk about probiotics. So thank you so much, James. Now, As you were saying, more is not always better. What is your feeling about incorporating fermented food, like really good quality sauerkraut, into your diet rather than having to take a lot of pills?
Well, I think you need to take in sauerkraut and kimchi. I mean, I used to drink fermented sauerkraut juice. I mean, that's how much I got into it. I love fermented foods. I think if you're in today's world, so many people are on proton pump inhibitors, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, corticosteroids. People are taking metformin. There's probably 25%, it's estimated right now, 25% of the drugs that are out on the market disrupt the microbiome in some way. So that's called a drug-induced microbiome disruption. I actually just put together a little ebook on that because I think it's really important for people to understand that a lot of the most common medications that you're on, everybody thinks of antibiotics, but people don't think of antidepressants or blood sugar medications that could be disrupting your microbiome. So I think you need to incorporate fermented foods, and I'm a huge fan of fermented foods and have been for decades. But once you cross that realm of I'm on medication that's killing it off or inhibiting it, I think that a responsible amount of probiotics is a good strategy instead of taking, and I'm not saying I'm taking 20 of them a day. It's take one or two. I think that it's a good strategy. But without a doubt, fermented foods are invaluable. You just have the concerns on people with their dairy allergies. Are they human strain flora? Are they human strain flora that's been proven in clinical trials for specific situations like irritable bowel? So, depending on where a person's food intolerance is at, that may influence what they're taking in on a fermented food. But I mean, sauerkraut and kimchi are two of the best foods that I think more people are eating them, but it's still kind of rare.
But one thing I noticed in the health food store is it used to be, I'm not going to name any brands, because by the way, we shouldn't name any brands on this show because we are non-commercial kind of radio. But for instance, you go out to the game, right, the ball game, and there's hot dogs and sauerkraut, so there's kind of a commercial brand that people would know, and it's also available to buy in the store. When you read that commercial brand of sauerkraut, it's loaded with preservatives.
That's right.
And benzoates and things that are not in some of the newer krauts that are now coming on the market, which are truly all natural. And you can tell by reading your label.
There are so many really interesting new sauerkrauts out that are correctly fermented. And as I said, I think people should try to eat it hot, eat it cold. You can throw it on a salad. I mean, I think it's really a good strategy because it's available now, right? I mean, it used to be you had one choice going to the store, like you said.
Right.
Now
it was all full of
there's
stuff.
Now there's a whole bunch of sauerkrauts that are almost like a artisan made. When you think of the small craft beer cottage industry, we have a small sauerkraut cottage industry going on now, where there's all of these great flavors and companies that are truly making it in the tradition. Like we used, I literally, when I would go and train under my one mentor who was a naturopath in Canada, I would spend our Saturday making sauerkraut.
Which is not
literally
difficult
making
to do,
it the traditional way. Starter culture, shredding the cabbage, putting it in a ceramic tub, putting a wood weight on top of it, and it was pretty cool to do.
I agree. And we're going to take a little break right here and like to remind you listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live online at nccradio.org or on iHeartRadio. For more information on today's guest or topic, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. Stay tuned. Herbally Yours will be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. This is Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and today we're with our highly knowledgeable guest. We're very fortunate to have him, and that is James LaValle, who is a registered pharmacist. Look him up on JimLaValle.com. That's Jim and then LaValle, JimLaValle.com. He's got so many topics and so much information. I just opened up a book that he wrote called Your Blood Never Lies, about reading blood work. We actually did a show together about that as well. But you have endless topics, James, that you have written on. And today we're talking about probiotics. And it's interesting that they can be useful if you choose the right one for so much health support. For instance, how about shortening the common cold?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. They did a study with probiotics, and that they found was that a reduction in 2 days of length of time, and then really over about a 40% reduction in symptoms. So the severity goes down, and shortening of the duration goes down. However, people should realize you need to be on it prophylactically. So start when it's now, right? Because we're in September. If you haven't got a bug yet, get on some probiotics, because once you catch a bug, it isn't like you're going to just take probiotic as if you took an over-the-counter cold and flu remedy and get some type of symptom relief. You want to be on probiotics during the cold and flu season, and there's very good evidence, even as it relates to allergies as well, since it's still in that topic of immunity. The whole area of the ectopic allergies, or IgE-mediated allergies, where you have skin, rashes, itchiness, even it's in the category where people have asthmatic symptoms. The level of circulating antibodies goes down with the chronic use of probiotics. So pretty interesting.
It is, and so many other interesting things. What about, there's a lot of hype about you want to use tons and tons of probiotics with this massive long list of different new strains. How do you feel about that? Because personally, I've actually seen some studies showing that some of these novel strains don't have a lot of science behind them, and also sometimes can transmute into strains that might in fact be harmful rather than helpful.
You literally hit the points I would make is that there's, in many cases, there's no evidence for human consumption and what the benefit is, and that we haven't studied what happens in the body, and we haven't even studied what happens when you put 20 of those strains together in the capsule in many cases, because what can happen is those strains can compete with each other. So you may be taking a probiotic that you think, oh, I want, a Bifidobacterium longum species, and it may be getting destroyed by some other rogue bacteria that's in there because they've got 20 different strains in there. And so, to me, it just becomes an unreliable event. I would rather see people eat prebiotic foods, eat fermented foods, and take strains that have been proven through evidence that they have benefit, and that they're proven to survive together in a capsule, and that when you take them, you get a clinical benefit. And so I'm not crazy about the big, hey, here's the 40 strain flora, made from dirt. I'm not big on that because there's no evidence behind it.
So what are some of the strains that you, as a true expert and researcher, are some that people should look for on a label?
Well, once again, they're strain and species specific, so you can look at things like DNA, verified helps so that you're getting, the proper flora. But so there's Lactobacillus acidophilus, and then there's Lactobacillus acidophilus, but then they have strains of those. So, one that's well known is Lactobacillus acidophilus. That's a GG strain, and so people can look for that. The longum species that I talked about, there's one that says Gesseri has really good evidence for its immune benefits. But I think the biggest thing for the consumer is to look at the package. Does it say, is it DNA verified, meaning is the strain and species truly what it says it is? And then what is the expiration date? And is it supported by some science? Because once again, remember, when you're taking these ingredients into your body, you're taking them into your body, and you should really study up on it. And so, if I want to take a probiotic, which one might be right for me? Is the product I'm taking one that has benefit? So, you can look in terms of, Bifidobacterium. So people are looking. Bifidobacterium bifidum is one. Bifidobacterium longum. Saccharomycosis boulardii is one that's commonly used for antibiotic-induced diarrhea and has studies behind it. So those are some of the different strains that are out there and available.
That you might want to look at. And I'm reminding you that you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and my guest today is nutritional expert and pharmacist James LaValle, and we're talking all things probiotic today right here on Herbally Yours. And James, also, that's great information. What do you think of the delivery system, let's say a powder, which has no excipients or additives versus a capsule or a tablet?
Excipients are a part of delivering ingredients. Do I think you can do a better job of the type of excipients that go in a product? Sure. But just because something's in a powder doesn't mean it's more viable in the bottle. Once again, it exposes more surface area. Maybe it's in a sachet that's foil sealed, in which case it would be a powder. But sometimes powders have excipients in them in order to act as flow agents or to act as dispersion agents in water. So, without a doubt, the cleaner you can get a product, the better. But at the same time, I'm not, rice bran flour or other excipients that are used for manufacturing. I have no problem with. Certainly, the vegetable stearate, dilemma. I think has been overblown. The animal stearate products are a problem, but anyway, it's what it really comes down to is: do you have a study on the exact pill that you're taking that shows that it has a benefit in allergies or cold and flu season? Does it seed in your intestine, and does it have a doubling rate? And if people use it in a capsule versus a powder, I don't I don't have a problem with that. It's just that whether it's responsibly made or not.
Okay, well, those are great answers. Now, some of the other conditions that actually have been studied, one that many people run to take is for weight loss. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's early science that shows that people that are overweight tend to make more of the Firmicutes phylum in your gut versus the Bacteroidetes, and that there seems to be a propensity to store fat more in a microbiome in your gut that has more of the Firmicutes. So right away, people jump to, well, if we just replace the flora, people will lose weight. So I think it's a little early to jump on that bandwagon, because I realize that weight loss is much more complicated than just, it's your gut. It could be stress hormones, it could be environmental burden, it could be your thyroid, it could be blood sugar dysregulation. And there's a lot of different ways that you can trigger inflammation in your body, but having unfriendly flora or a shift in your flora that then, you start throwing out a bunch of inflammatory chemicals into your body, which will cause you to gain weight. So, I think it's a valid point that probiotics may play a role in weight loss. I've certainly used them in my weight loss programs. I think it's unreasonable to think we're going to find a miracle probiotic that's going to, make everybody slim.
Right. Well, it's kind of like
diabetic and pre-diabetic.
Along with, like they always say, along with healthy eating and exercise.
Oh my gosh, the very minimum, right? It's like do a little deep breathing, try to relax. There's so much involved in it, but I do think that there's the research is sound. It's just that, please, don't look for miracles.
Now, what about reducing GI symptoms? Because that, I have seen people get immediate results within a day or two. It's just astounding.
Yeah, that's probably where the science is the best, right? If you've got irritable bowel or you've got any kind of GI symptoms, gas, bloating, GERD, I can't tell you how many people, right, that are, they're pumping down the Nexium and the proton pump inhibitors, and, you change their diet around and actually have them chew their food, and then take a probiotic, and all of a sudden their GI symptoms are reducing dramatically. And so I think it's probably one of the strongest areas of benefit for individuals is just on gut health. Absolutely.
Which makes sense, since that's where they often live.
That's
and
right.
So much of the immune system really is in the gut when you look at something like IgG. So it really makes total sense. And to me, like yourself, having been in this field, me since 1964, and even talking about probiotics back then, sometimes the name of it changes, to different things, but now it's called probiotics. Versus the overproduction of these highly involved formulas, which really are just about marketing hype, in my opinion, with no good science behind how well they work together. Yep. So I think that's a wonderful warning that you brought to our listeners in terms of increased discernment.
Exactly. In the end, spend as much time studying your body as you do on the next refrigerator you're going to buy. That's what I tell people all the time.
And go to probiotics with an S, probiotics.com, because you can find more information, and it's really nice because there's a survey that can also help you in terms of your age and your symptoms, what would be best. So we're going to close here, Dr. James. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Great being on. You always ask the good questions. It's always good to be on.
Thank you, Dr. James. And that's Dr. James LaValle, registered pharmacist, clinical nutritionist. And thank you for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi, at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.